Wow, okay, that was faster than expected. As first reported by Adrian Wojnarowski, the Washington Wizards are sending Bradley Beal, who is lifting his no-trade clause, to the Phoenix Suns. In return, the Phoenix Suns are sending Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, several second-round picks, and some first-round pick swaps. New owners often like to make a big splash when they acquire the team, and now Matt Ishbia has made two big splashes in just a couple of months. This situation developed very quickly. It was initially reported like 5 days ago that the Washington Wizards would work with Bradley Beal to find a trade partner. And this comes just 1 year after Bradley Beal not only signed a 5-year, $250 million contract, but one that included a complete no-trade clause. I know you guys have probably heard all about this no-trade clause, but do you understand how ridiculous it is? Right before the 2020 to 2021 NBA season, before he won a championship, Giannis signed a contract extension. Did he get a no-trade clause? Nope. Durant doesn't have one. LeBron doesn't have one. Heck, even Dame doesn't have one, despite his obsession with Portland. And let's not get it twisted. Bradley Beal is a fantastic player. Over the last 5 years, he's averaged 27 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 5.5 assists per game for the Washington Wizards. But there's just no way they had to do all that to re-sign him. They were already giving him an extra year and way more money than any other team could. So yeah, pretty much every NBA fan knew that extension was a bad idea, but I'm getting a little bit off track. Let's first talk about this trade from the perspective of the Phoenix Suns, and then we'll do the Wizards after. For the Suns, the obvious thing is that they've formed a big three with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal now. Kevin Durant just loves his big threes, I guess. And they made this trade while retaining DeAndre Ayton. All they had to do was give up like the corpse of Chris Paul, who probably is going to get bought out, a bad contract but a fine player in Landry Shamet, and some draft capital stuff that could be interesting for the Wizards. In a vacuum, this trade is amazing for an all-NBA caliber player, but there are definitely some concerns. For example, how is this team going to operate? One of Bradley Beal or Devin Booker will likely be playing the point guard position, at least on the stat sheet. The only time either one of these guys played point guard for any consistent stretch of time was Bradley Beal in the 2017-18 season after John Wall got injured. Devin Booker's had some good assist numbers in the past, twice posting over 6.5 assists per game, but those were on some pretty awful pre-Chris Paul teams. I wouldn't say either of these guys are natural facilitators, and you can even argue that their skill sets are kind of redundant. Of course, they're super talented scorers, but having two extremely talented scorers can create kind of a weird fit. Think about the Dallas Mavericks last season. They traded for Kyrie Irving to pair up two of the best guards in the league. Their offensive potential was insane, but unfortunately they were terrible in the clutch, and they fell all the way out of the playoffs. Devin Booker is the overall better player, so I assume he's going to get the lead guard roles and will hence be designated as the point guard. So what's that going to leave Bradley Beal to do? Is he going to be relegated to a catch-and-shoot guy? Bradley Beal and John Wall worked several years ago, but that's because Wall was a much more willing passer in his prime. I think Bradley Beal will make it work, but I just think it's going to diminish the value of his skill set. I'm sure we're going to see plays where Devin Booker's bringing up the ball, Bradley Beal's working off an off-ball screen, he catches the ball, does a pump fake, and then drives to the rim and score. Like, that's going to be cool. I'm just saying it's not like you're getting the full impact of Bradley Beal's scoring. But we all know that the top four is not the main problem. There are plenty of concerns with the rest of the roster. We've seen in the past that forming these super teams leaves the team's bench in rough shape. Next season, the Suns are going to pay those four guys almost $163 million. The salary cap for next season is $134 million, with the luxury tax at $162. So the Phoenix Suns are over the luxury tax with just those four players. The only other player on their roster right now is Cameron Payne, but I assume they're going to re-sign Josh Okogie and start him at the 3. Beal and Booker are average at best defenders. Down low, you have Kevin Durant, who's a good defender, and Ayton is about as average as they come. So they're going to put a good defender like Okogie at the 3, so they can be passable on defense, and they're just going to pray that he can make his open threes. They have bird rights on a couple of interesting guys in Darius Bazley, Jock Landale, and Torrey Craig, but in all honesty, half of their roster is going to be 2K auto-generated players. This is due in large part to the new collective bargaining agreement in the NBA. The 2023 CBA introduced 2 luxury aprons, the first of which is $7 million above the luxury tax, or $169 million for the 23-24 season, and the second apron is $17.5 million above the luxury tax, or $179.5 million. The Suns are likely going to be a second apron team, and this gives them basically zero flexibility to upgrade their roster. This disallows them from using a mid-level exception, taking on extra money from trades, and most importantly, disallows them from signing buyout players. That's extremely detrimental because that's kind of been the formula for these attempted super teams. Make the trade, and find older ring-chasing talent in the buyout market. But who knows, maybe a guy like John Wall wants to come to Washington on a minimum just to help out his friend Bradley Beal. So yeah, they're basically going to have no way to upgrade this roster for the next 3 years while all 4 players are under contract. In fact, by the 25-26 season, those 4 players will be owed almost $200 million just in that season. But we cannot ignore the positives. The Suns have a dedicated owner who's willing to take risks and pay the luxury tax to acquire talent. All 4 players are signed for at least 3 seasons, and they probably have the most talented roster in the league, at least at the top. If soon-to-be 35-year-old Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal can stay healthy, their talent just might win anyways. Overall, would I have done this trade if I were the Suns? I think so. They gave up very little, they wouldn't have had much cap space with CP3 anyways, and while the pick swaps are a little scary, they would only be damaging if the Wizards are actually good, and that seems unlikely for quite a while. The biggest concern, to be honest, is the no-trade clause that came with Beal. And that brings us to the Washington Wizards. If you thought I was hard on the Suns, strap in, because what the f*** were the Wizards thinking? I get it, they got crappy value for Beal because Beal had all the leverage because of his no-trade clause. I get it, I'm not mad at the trade itself. But if you were going to trade him after one mid-season, which by the way, everyone knew they would have, why would you have given him a no-trade clause? It makes no sense. And honestly, that makes sense, because the Wizards' ownership the last few years hasn't made sense. I just don't understand why you wouldn't have looked for sign-in trades, or even just let Bradley Beal walk last offseason if you would just trade him for pennies on the dollar. I think they just would have been much better off if they got rid of Bradley Beal last offseason. Picture this. They sign and trade Beal for a bad contract and some draft picks, maybe Duncan Robinson on the Heat. Now their team would have been much worse this season. They were 11-21 without Beal. If they were trying to tank, they could have been even worse and been involved in the Wembanyama sweepstakes. Instead, they were just content picking in the mid to late lottery once again. And now, like I said, they're going to get pennies on the dollar. They're going to have to pay Chris Paul to probably waive him, and they're going to have to pay Landry Shamet on a 3-year contract, and they have no significant draft capital to show for it. They are starting a rebuild not from square one, where they traded their star for future assets, but from square zero. I don't think it was a bad trade in a vacuum. At least they're finally off Bradley Beal's contract. I'm just so mad they gave to him in the first place. With that being said, what the heck do the Wizards do now? To be honest, I don't know. I was working on a video predicting where the top free agents would go this offseason, and I predicted the Wizards would re-sign Porzingis and let Kuzma walk. I'm now like 99% sure Kuzma will go to another team, but what about KP? He was pretty dang good last year. Would he get them too many wins to tank? He isn't old, he's going on 28 years old, but it's not like he fits with the core of whoever they draft in the future. The worst thing for the Wizards is that there's just really no one on this roster I'm super excited about long term. Like I said, KP's shown he's a near all-star caliber player, and that's cool, but like what else do they have? I think Denny Avdija could be a nice player with a larger role, but I don't see any like all-star ceiling from him. Corey Kispert's a good shooter, but not a top 3 guy on any good team. And their most recent draft pick, Johnny Davis, legitimately might be the worst player in the NBA right now. Of course, he's still young, and some players just take longer to develop. I get that. But I'm just saying, this is not some guaranteed cornerstone piece they have. So next year, the Wizards will finally take the plunge from mediocrity to the bottom of the league, where they have the potential to stay for quite a long time. So wow, yeah, I was not expecting to make this video so quickly. I've never made a script, recorded it, and edited it in one day, and I really scrambled to get it done. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know down below. What did you think of the trade? Do you think anyone won? Do you think anyone lost? Would you have done it from both sides? I don't know. But that's it for now. Peace.